podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast, and it's Chris and Joe in person. 2 weeks running, Joe. This is incredible. But we thought we'd get together to preview the Man City game and talk through the run-in towards the end of the season, give our predictions of how Chelsea will fare. But Joe, let's start with, how are you and how are you feeling about this game at the weekend?
Good afternoon, mate. I'm very well, thank you. I've had a nice few days on the Kent coast and the sun was shining. The kids have done the Easter egg hunts. There's too much chocolate in the house, which I'm trying not to eat. I'm sure you're the same. And I'm absolutely shit scared of Man City at the weekend.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel so. What didn't help my cause, I've just been looking at their team, and obviously we all saw how they dismantled both Arsenal and Liverpool in the last couple of games, but just looking through the talent in their lineup and you go, Semenyo, he's good, isn't he? Cherky, he's all right. Oh, Haaland's found his form again. That's good news. Silva and Rodri in centre mid aren't bad. It's just, Foden can't even get off the bench at the moment. It's absolutely unreal, isn't it? And yeah, you kind of contrast that to the Chelsea team at the moment, where you're struggling to find more than a handful of players that aren't sort of well below form at the moment. It doesn't fill you with a huge amount of faith, but who knows? Maybe we can do something at the weekend to get our season kind of really rolling into the run-in. We'll do our team in a second, Joe. Before we do the team, what does Chelsea need to do to win this game? And what have you seen from other performances this season that maybe give us some hope? Let's give us some hope, please, Joe.
Is there any hope? I think Chelsea, they've got to turn up and perform and play as a team. I think the game that impressed me the most, which was under Enzo Maresca, was the Liverpool home game. Now, Liverpool at the time weren't in the bad run of form that they're currently in at the moment. They were sort of a team then that you thought would probably win the league or certainly come close to it. They've fallen off a cliff much like we have. But in that game, you saw that everybody upon everybody stuck together. We had, from memory, we didn't have any centre halves, any fit centre back. We had a string of players that couldn't play. And then during the game, I think Badiashile then got injured. I think Hecke came on for maybe his debut or close to his debut and played in centre-back with Reece James, I think, for a period. And we just stuck together as a team and we kept fighting. And even before we scored that last-minute winner when Esteban scored that last-minute winner, we ended up hit the post just before that with a header, and we kept going and we kept, believing that we could get something out of the game. And I think that's where Chelsea's form, not against Port Vale, of course, but the games leading up to Port Vale, I feel as though we've looked like a team that doesn't believe that we can win. And if you go in with that attitude, you're never going to get anywhere. And I just hope that against Man City, because as you just reeled off, 10 players there or so, they've got such talent in that team that if Chelsea are off it by even, 10% in the weekend, it could be a cricket score. So, yeah, fingers crossed they can all dig in and play together. And even though it was only Port Vale, that 7 goals at home will hopefully have given them some sort of confidence going into the game against City.
Yeah, you're banging on that Liverpool game, because it was Badiashile and Josh Hutchinson that started, wasn't it? And they both got injured I think Badiashile, having looked back, came off just before the hour mark. Hutchinson wasn't long after. And you're right, it was Hatter and Reece James at centre-back, and you feared the worst. But Chelsea did show real personality that day. Likewise against Barcelona at home, where probably what we saw against them will be similar to the game at City, which was really like exploiting the high line, making sure that you're getting people like Neto and Garnacho in behind, stretching the pitch, doing all that good stuff that we can do on the counter, which is when Chelsea, let's face it, we see the best version of Chelsea's on that counter. So hopefully we see that side of us. And it's always small margins, isn't it? Doing the good stuff in the boxes and making sure we don't concede any silly goals. Let's do our team. Joe and I did this beforehand, and as you'll hear, we kind of sweated through a few decisions. Some of them were not easy, some of them were. A couple of the easy ones, obviously Sanchez in goal, Gusto right back, obviously no Reece James still at the moment, Cucurella left back, although a special shout for Hato, but you'll see why he's at left back in a second. And then centre backs, Joe, we talked long and hard about this. I've gone with your best mate, Tosin, at right centre-back, alongside Hato at left centre-back. So a nice bit of balance. The reason I've gone with that is, honestly, Fofana has just done my head in so much with some of his displays recently. I just don't think he deserves to play. and I feel like Tosin gives you the height and strength against Haaland with Hato alongside him with a bit of that recovery pace that would been so important. They would be my two. Where are you sitting on that centre-back issue?
I agree. I would certainly play Hato if it was my team. However, I don't think that's going to happen. I think because Haaland is 6'5", Tosin is 6'5", I feel as though we have to go kind of height for height there because he's an absolute animal in the box. I think it will be Fofana and Tosin, and that's probably the correct call because Hato is 6 foot, and like I say, Haaland is a giant of a man, and anything in the box from corners or set pieces. I know he won't be picking him up, or he shouldn't be picking him up, but you know what it's like in the penalty box. Tosin gets moved around or something, and Hato suddenly picks him up at the last second, and there's no way he's winning that ball. So I agree with you. I would like to see Hato play in that left centre-back position because I just like him as a player. And because I don't like any of our centre-backs at all, really, apart from Josh, who I don't think will play in this game, I think it will be Fofana and Tosin on the day, personally.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. One thing I would say is I think Hato almost carries himself small because he's only actually 3 centimetres shorter than Fofana, according to my good friend at Google. But yeah, I think you're probably right. I just think Fofana's very lucky. I think he's getting away with it a little bit, not to be under a lot more criticism than he is at the moment. But yeah, who knows? Hopefully he can kind of pull himself together at the weekend. Obviously, centre midfield, one of those options is very easy, which is Caicedo. He needs to be careful, by the way, because if he gets booked, then it's a 2-game ban for him, which would not be helpful. Alongside him, we ummed and ahed, didn't we, between Lavia and Santos on this one, Joe? Obviously no Enzo Fernandez because the club have given ourselves a little bit of a self-suspension on that one. Where do we sit between Lavia and Andre Santos?
I think as well as Santos has done, and I think he is a very good player, he's one of the players I do like in this team. I think because he's fit and he's ready to go and he can be a difference maker, there's no question about it. I think Lavia should play against Man City, particularly because we're not going to have a lot of the ball. I think that's fairly obvious. Man City will keep the ball and starve us of it. So when we do get possession and we are in a position where we can thread a pass through to, goodness help us, Liam Delap then, but let's hope he doesn't play. We might actually get a chance to score a goal. I think with Santos, even though he can play a good pass, there's no question about it. We know with Lavia, with his experience, that a fit Lavia can be a game changer. And I think, again, I go back to that Liverpool game. Did he play against that game? Maybe it was last season I'm thinking of, but he has had some really crucial, brilliant games against some big teams when he's been fit. So I think for me, on the day, he's not going to play 90 minutes, as we know. Santos comes on, replaces him a bit later on, but I would go Caicedo and Lavia personally.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Yeah, Lavia came on against Liverpool after 55 minutes, one of his rare outings, and was brilliant and had a big part to play in the winning goal. So yeah, imagine when he does finally play 90 minutes. There'll be a lap of honour, won't there? It'll be a huge moment for him, if he ever does it, of course. But no, you're right, it won't be this weekend. And then we look at the front line. I think, again, let's go with the 3 easy ones. I think Estevan has to start. And you made a point, Joe, in the last pod, actually, after the Port Vale game, that we need to sort of see more consistency from Estevan now. And I actually just think we need to see him in the lineup consistently now. I think Chelsea have probably handled him a little bit with kid gloves this season and brought him in and out and probably done the right thing. But I think now it's enough. Just let the kid play. Just let him have that right wing slot on a regular basis. Stop moving him around. Stop mucking him around. Just say, look, right wing is yours. Get yourself playing. Have Palmer in at number 10, behind, of course, João Pedro. And then the left wing slot is the one that's open to debate, isn't it? And Joe, Neto or Garnacho? Which are we going? By the way, Gittins, it sounds like he's got another hamstring injury, so he could be done for the season now. So Neto or Garnacho, where are we going?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Gittins just very quickly because Rosini has been talking about him in the last couple of weeks in his pre-match and post-match press conferences, as if like Gittins has been really good this season and he's going to be a huge miss. Like he's been arguably one of our worst players. At the moment is one of our worst ever signings. And he keeps saying, it's a shame Gittins is not going to play again this week. He's not really played when he has played, to be fair. So I'm not exactly missing him. I think Garnacho for this game is probably not the right call. I think as frustrating as Neto can be, and I think this is what's frustrating for both of us. And when Roland was on the podcast last week, we were talking through our team, and not that we hate these players, don't get us wrong, but I think we expected a lot more from them. And I think Garnacho can be very, very hit and miss. I think he's more of an impact player at this stage. I think Neto probably should start, even though he drives me mad. And I know he drives lots of people mad. I would personally pick the experience there in a big, crucial game against Man City. So I'd go with Pedro Neto.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. He's had a funny season, Neto, hasn't he? Because he's had moments at points where you think, oh, he's actually could be building something decent here, and his numbers could be all right for the year. But then he'll then not do anything for 5 games and be really frustrating again. And I guess you kind of look at him and think, is this going to be the story of his career? Because we've definitely had moments on this pod in the last 2 years where we've gone, oh, we really like Neto. He's a real player, but he does frustrate you so much at times. But yeah, I think that's it. And again, he's the guy, isn't he? When you're looking at an out ball, that kind of ball over the top on the counter, you're thinking, yeah, he'd be the one that you want to get through. And you've left room in the squad there for the likes of Achimpong, Andre Santos and Garnacho to come off the bench and have an impact as well. So who knows? I mean, the other thing to say in terms of looking for optimism was how we played against City away with Callum McFarlane, of course, was in charge of that, wasn't he? And particularly the second half that day was one of our best 45 minutes of the season, actually. And we were kind of well worth the point in the end, weren't we? I won't tell you who scored our equaliser because it might make you sad, but it was, of course, Enzo Fernandez in the last, it was the last kick of the game. But yeah, Chelsea too often against City, I think, have almost shown them too much respect. That's always been my frustration. Of course, you've got to show a team like City respect, but get at them as well, a little bit like we did against Barcelona. Get on them, give them as much to worry about that you're going to do damage to them than you are worried about them. Whereas I think too many times against City, we've been at games, haven't we, Joe, together watching Chelsea v City, like, for example, the home game last season, which was obviously the first game of the season, and just thought, oh, we're not really worrying them enough. Do you know what I mean? And I really hope we can kind of get on the front foot on Sunday and give them something to worry about.
I think it takes you back to, we mentioned it a couple of times recently about Thomas Tuchel, and I don't want to harp on about the good old days, so forgive me, but you know when Pep's struggling or when he's got the hump, when he starts talking about the team or the opposition manager before a game, and he often would talk about Tuchel and say, oh, he's a great manager. He's probably the best in the league. He's better than me. He's the current Premier League champion, or he's just won European Cup. He's clearly the best manager in the league, and he does that sort of stuff. He fluffs you to sort of lull you into a full sense of security. And he was the only manager in recent times that really went for Man City and went for the jugular. You know, you're right. I think where Callum McFarlane actually got it bang on the money on the day is he was fairly stingy. He didn't give up a lot of ground. He didn't give City a lot of space to play. But when we went 1-0 down, and he knew in the second half we had to come back, and I think it was probably, I might be wrong here, but I want to say the last 20 or so minutes, we really went for it, and the handbrake fully came off. Reece was flying up and down the wing, and certain players kind of just suddenly went, well, Enzo, as you sort of alluded to, scoring the goal, would get in the box more often. And as we said before, if you start putting bodies in the box, you get a chance to score a goal. And I think that where Rosina sometimes goes wrong, he either goes too hard one way or the other. We either sit far too defensively or we go too gung-ho, and we don't really have that middle ground. And I think Maresca, for all his faults, at least knew that a point against City or a point against Arsenal was probably a good point. I take your points on board there, Chris, about Chelsea looking a little bit weak against Man City, and I couldn't agree more. I think that we've looked pretty pathetic, haven't we? I've only got to go back to the Conte game when we went in there and lost 1-0, and we barely crossed the halfway line for 90 minutes. I mean, I was actually ashamed that day. And again, I know that's not Brazilian or the current Chelsea team, but this is not what I'm trying to say. It isn't a thing that's been going on for like maybe a year or two. It dates back quite a long time. And you've got to be careful against Man City because, as we well know, they will destroy you if you leave loads of spaces in behind. But you have got to give them a going over at some point. And as we proved against them this season, they can be fallible.
Let's hope. We'd be doing Arsenal a massive favour, of course, but we have to focus on our own business and get the job done. Would you take a point, Joe?
Probably, but I think we need 3. But yeah, no, of course. Yeah, you have to take a point. Any point against Man City is a good one, because I think it'll breed some confidence going into the Man United game, which I think we desperately need. So yeah, a point is probably a decent return against a very good side.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Right. After the break, we will predict, whatever you want to call it, the run in towards the end of the season and whether Chelsea can get over the line and get back in the Champions League. Okay, Joe, the run in. Chelsea have got 7 games left in this season. We're in the FA Cup semi-final as well. We said at the start of the season that we would be happy as long as Chelsea got to the qualifying rounds of the Champions League, finished in the Champions League spots. Obviously, we wanted to finish 3rd, but which we still could, and won a domestic cup, which would be the FA Cup. We both said that would be what we were aiming for this season. It's really weird to me to say this, that we could still do all of those things. And yet at the moment, I feel incredibly negative about the season as a whole. And part of me is almost like looking forward to it being done, as negative as that sounds. Why do I feel so negative about us? Why has it been such an emotional roller coaster this year?
I think it stems from a lot of reasons. I think we can point to our own performances. We can point to the fact that we've changed managers yet again throughout the season. And we can point to that I don't think anybody is too pleased with how our transfer business has been dealt with or is being dealt with. I think the owners are obviously they're present sometimes at games, but they never ever speak to the club they don't speak to the supporters. I'm not saying they should come out and have a chat with us all, but they could at least, I think, make us feel a bit more like we're going in the right direction. I think most Chelsea fans, and I reckon you could ask, if you threw a net over 1,000 Chelsea fans, I reckon 950 would probably say they don't feel like the club's going in the right direction. I think there's only a very small percentage that would agree. I still don't want to throw my hat in the ring and say this is all a complete disaster. I think there have been some good signings. I think there have been some positive moments under Clear Lake, even though I'm not a huge fan of everything they do. I know what you mean, because I feel a little bit the same. I think because we've been so underwhelming and the performances have been so underwhelming, and our track record against beating the big sides is so poor all the time, that I think we're not seeing like growth, really. I think we finished 4th last year with the last kick of the game. And this year, I think we thought we would easily finish 4th, probably finish 3rd, but comfortably finish 3rd. And I think we sit 6th currently. And teams below us, like Brentford, etc., are only like maybe a point or 2 behind us. So they could easily leapfrog us if we don't beat Man City at the weekend. And before you know it, finishing 3rd could also, you say we could finish 3rd, we could also finish 7th or 8th if we're not careful, because we have a really, really poor run of games. So I think that's where it stems from. I think we all realise the magnitude of what is hanging on the season. And yeah, it's a difficult one, because I can't make anybody feel better about it, because at the moment I don't think there's a way out. You just hope that the club have seen these comments from Cucurella and maybe Enzo Fernandez, and there's probably more than them as well that have been said behind closed doors. I think Reece James has been given some assurances the club will buy some experienced players and Premier League proven players. But as we well know, if you're going to buy those players, they are not going to be cheap unless you get players that have been relegated. So maybe a Gibbs White or something becomes available because he's cheaper. But we know that Marinakis is not going to sell his players for cheap money. So you're talking 50, 60 plus for every player that we look at, which is going to be a huge ask, particularly if Chelsea fail to get in the Champions League. So I think there's many reasons to be down. All we can hope is that Chelsea somehow get themselves together and beat Man City, beat Man United, and beat Liverpool. And you never know, things could be very different. But the way we're playing, you just can't see it, sadly.
You bang on it. It's really on the knife edge, actually, when you look at our season. So let's have a quick look at the table. So Chelsea played 31 games. This probably sort of says everything about our inconsistency this year. We've won 13, drawn 9, and lost 9. So that says a lot. And we're on 48 points. We are 7 points behind third. So that it's fairly unlikely, but we are 7 points behind third. We're 6 points ahead of 13th, which is Bournemouth. This run-in, you could very much end anywhere from getting into the Champions League spots, which at this point would be a really good end to the season, and Liam Rosini would be really ending on a high and would get a lot of credit. Or we could easily slip down even beyond 7th and 8th, down to real mid-table. So everything is there to be played for, of course, with the FA Cup in the mix as well. Man United, let's be fair, I think both of us would say we're probably too far ahead on 55 points, probably, but also just winning too many games and picking up too many wins that we think they'll probably be difficult to catch. Villa and Liverpool may be a little bit different. Villa have got a 6-point gap on us, but their form has been poor. They're losing a lot of games and obviously are still in Europe themselves. And then Liverpool, 1 point ahead of us on 49, very inconsistent themselves, and obviously still in the Champions League, at least for a little while longer, having lost to PSG last night. So it's in Chelsea's hands, of course, because we play Liverpool and Man United in the run-in. Let's go through the fixtures, and Joe, we will attempt to predict what Chelsea will do. Let's start with the Man City game, Joe. I'll let you go first on this one. We talked about it earlier. We previewed it. Win, lose, or draw against Man City?
I think they got too much for us. I think we lose.
You negative Nelly, Joe. You
Sorry.
absolutely negative Nelly. I'm going to join you, though, and say, yes, they will beat us. So we lose that one. Then Man United a week after at the Bridge, Saturday night, under the lights. I'll go first and say that we are going to win.
I think it's going to be a really hard game. I think it's a difficult game for us. I think the best we get, the way we're playing at the Bridge, and if we do lose to Man City, it's another negative result there. I think the best we can hope for is a draw, sadly.
Draw. Not looking good for the Champions League. Okay. A few days later, we go to Brighton. What we're doing at Brighton. Big derby for them. They're always up for it.
Oh, it is horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. A ground we are so bad at. I'm going to say win. I'm not 100% convinced, but I think if we've got any hope, we have to win that. So I'm going to say win.
Yeah, your words said win. Your voice didn't sound convinced.
I'm not.
I'm going to say that we will draw at Brighton. We then go to Wembley. Let's do the FA Cup as well. Chelsea v Leeds. Historic return to Wembley. Do we make it to the FA Cup final, Joe?
Fresh off a win against Brighton. Yes, I think we do.
I think we do as well. I'm going to go we win after extra time. Forest at home. I'll go first. Chelsea to win it. What a run we're on.
Yeah, that's a hard game. I think it's a much harder game than it looks, but I think Forest can be quite poor and porous. So I'm going to say win there.
Looking good. We're looking good. This is bringing the feel-good factor back. Okay, and wait, I didn't do that one, did I? Forest, yeah, I've said a win. Liverpool away, Saturday lunchtime, May the 9th. What are we saying?
Strangely, Liverpool at 12:30 aren't very good, are they? That's a poor game to them. I strangely think that they are banging trouble. And even though this looks like I'm going to say we're going to win like 3 or 4 games in a row here, I actually think we might beat them. And I know it's a strange thing to say, but I think we might do that. So I'm going to say win.
Wow. What a run. Okay, Spurs at home. Is it the day that we send Spurs down, or will De Zerbi get them playing well again? It's Spurs at home. I can't go with anything other than a win. Oh, wait, did I do Liverpool? I keep forgetting. Sorry. I'm going to say a draw at Liverpool, and then we beat Spurs. What are you saying?
I think De Zerbi will shit out his way to a draw.
A draw. And then the final game of the season, Sunderland away. tough place to go, although the hope would be that they've got basically nothing to play for. And on that basis, I think Chelsea will win and get Champions League on the last day in the same way that we did last season.
Yeah, I think this all depends on the games leading up to this. We've said a few wins there, I know. And to be honest with you, they're not like, I don't think we're reaching for those wins. I think there is a world where we could do that. If Chelsea are in contention for a Champions League spot, yeah, I think with Sunderland being maybe dead and buried, I think we would win that game. If we've lost a couple or drawn a couple of games and we've fallen off a little bit, I could see Sunderland beating us. Yeah, I think I'll caveat it by saying if we were in a much more negative position, I think they'll beat us, because I think Chelsea would have given up by that point, and we'd be on the beach ourselves. Otherwise, if we got a sniff of Champions League, I think we'd probably go there and win.
There we go. Well, we have probably quite safely predicted that Chelsea will get into the Champions League, probably finishing 5th, which was confirmed obviously this week that 5th will be good enough for the Champions League. I mean, to be honest, Jay, the way I've been so optimistic, we'll probably finish 4th with my predictions there. I might have been a bit over the top, but if you can't be optimistic now, when can you?
I think it's a little bit of fun, isn't it? We don't know. We're Chelsea fans. We are certainly not saying that Chelsea are in a position to qualify for the Champions League. But I think we're sort of saying, I think, with our words, that we think if we've got any hope of doing it, then we probably have to do what we've said. Is that fair?
I think that is very fair. It's a tough group of fixtures, isn't it, to be fair? Like it genuinely is. And then obviously we'd have the FA Cup final to look forward to. And then built off the great run that I've put us on, probably go and beat Man City in the final, I'd have thought.
I mean, also there's been quite a lot of transfer chatter with Chelsea. Again, it's all noise and stuff. I mean, I'm going to put you on the spot here slightly. I mean, there's been talk of players like Van Hecke, Tonali from Newcastle have been linked to us. Do any of these players excite you? Would you be pleased to see Tonali and Van Hecke in Chelsea's first team next season?
I think it's funny, isn't it? Because when you're in a bad run, you kind of you take anything. So there's an element of like, oh, Tonali's got a bit of experience. He would be a bit more like it. I don't know if I know enough about Van Hecke, to be honest. How good is he? Genuinely.
He's another Brighton player. So I don't want to see another Brighton player join the club for as long as I live. I mean, I know we've just signed that boy from Strasbourg who was at Brighton.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to see any more Brighton players come into the team. I think if I was the owners, I would be looking as far away from Brighton as humanly possible. I'm sure Todd and Barley have got themselves a nice suite at the Amex Stadium. When they go there next in a couple of weeks' time, I'm sure they're going to get the red carpet out for him. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's a good player for Brighton. I think some players can be good. You know, with that, again, I'm not saying he's Van Dijk by any means, but when Van Dijk was at Celtic, I don't think anybody could have foreseen that he'd have been the player that he turned out to be at Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? Even though they paid 70 odd million for him, I think most people looked at that and probably turned their nose up and said, what have they done there? I think he was always highly touted as a good player, but when you're playing in Scotland, it's very hard to see through the crap, isn't it? Yeah, I think Van Hecke's one I wouldn't be overly keen on. And I think you're right. I think this is the point, that names get banded about because Chelsea aren't playing that well. So he sounds like an upgrade, doesn't he? And I think I would be very, very sceptical on a player like that personally. But then you look at Murillo and you think, well, he's playing in a team that are currently in the relegation zone, I believe. So you go, well, is he an upgrade? I think we would believe that he actually is. It's very, very hard. When you're not doing so well, which Chelsea aren't at the moment, even though they could win the FA Cup, it's possible. Yeah, when you're in a negative frame of mind, I think anything sounds better than what you've currently got. But I have to say, I am not a fan of Fofana, Tosin, Badiashile. That's all. Like, really, I'm not. And I think I would happily see all three of them lead the club at the end of the season, although that's probably a spoiler for our predictions for the players we want to keep, loan or sell. So, yeah, maybe I'll keep the powder dry on the other players before I give anything away.
Yeah, I think if anyone's been listening to the podcast this season, they'll not be surprised by that anyway, to be fair, Joe, because they know our views. Do you know what I'll say on the links? There's been quite a few links, haven't there? They are 25 years old, both of those two, proven Premier League players. If that's the kind of area that Chelsea are looking in, I'm happy. Let's take the names out of it for a second. I do like buying from other Premier League teams. I think go and get their best player. That's the only thing I'd say is going like Man City did with look at their January. Palace, who's your captain and probably certainly one of your best players. It's Mark Gay. Get him. Go to Bournemouth. Semenyo, he's your best player. Get him. I think that's what you got to do. Obviously, Arsenal did it with Eze from Palace in the summer as well. I think player transfers like that, I'm all for. It's really smart. I just think Chelsea have got to make sure that they're shopping in that level of the market. But I think going into Premier League teams and picking up players like that, yeah, let's face it, it's encouraging, isn't it? Because I just don't think we can get excited about another 19-year-old coming out of South America that we've never heard of.
No, I think you make a good point there, actually, about City. I've never really thought of it that way, like Gahey and Semenyo, for example, because Chelsea always did this. Do you remember, like, when we had, like, almost super team for, like, best part of 20 years, really? We would go and get Scott Parker from Charlton. That sort of signing. We went and got that. And we probably looked at that and thought, is he going to play? Is he going to play against play ahead of Lampard or Makelele or someone? But basically, they were there as if Makelele, or I forget the team now, SCN, I forget who was. I might be getting the time frame slightly wrong, but they would come in and be that cover. And when they came in, the team didn't really suffer too much. Does that make sense? So I think you're right, is that if you are going to go and buy someone, don't go and buy Brighton's rejects like we've done with Rob Sanchez, for example. I think they wouldn't even play him. Brighton were like, no, we don't even want him. Chelsea went there and splashed 25 big ones on him. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think we've sort of got to the stage where we're having to shop in this market, because I don't think that Chelsea are going to have 60, 80 million pounds for 4 or 5 players. But then we said this about Man United last year. The rumours were that they didn't have any money whatsoever. Then they went and bought Cunha and Buemo, and forgive me, I forget their one now. There was another one they signed, a big signing. So they had, like, they made 3 huge signings in the summer, and you're like, well, I thought you had no money. So maybe Chelsea will do that on 3 players in the summer, and they'll surprise us. But I think that currently, with our financial situation, we are probably having to shop a little bit lower. But at least if we're buying 25, 26-year-olds that are going to give us as fans some kind of hope going into the new season, it can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it was Shesko, wasn't it? The other one that United got. And yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I think it's always overblown that if you don't get Champions League, you won't be able to do any business. And Chelsea have proven in the past that isn't true. I think, like, just for a bit of fun, having a quick look at Premier League sort of top-rated players, so FOTMob ratings, which sometimes you can take with a bit of a pinch of salt, to be fair, like all of these ratings. But if I read you some of the top players on the list, you kind of go, well, no, they are, the Premier League's top players. So number 1 on the list is Bruno Fernandes, you've got Declan Rice, Erling Haaland, Saka, people like that, Rodri. But then I'm going to pick out some players high on this list that you probably could get, potentially. Elliot Anderson at Forest is number 5 on the list. Obviously, if Forest go down, then there'll be a bit of a fire sale, we would have thought, and a lot of clubs will be in for him. James Garner at Everton is number 9 on the list. Top-rated players. I'm skipping down to obviously players that you just wouldn't be able to get, who are at Man City and Liverpool and stuff like that. Enzo Fernandez is Chelsea's highest on the list, by the way. He's at 22. And then Reece James. Harry Wilson, probably a bit old, but he's very high on the list. And then someone that I mentioned the other day, would be very, very expensive, is Morgan Rogers at Villa, who Chelsea have a long-standing interest in, of course. He'd be one to watch. He's 23, very good friends with Cole Palmer, isn't he? And he'd be the sort of player that I'd be looking at of going like, yeah, he's going to cost you a lot of money. But to me, that's the level of player that if we were to get someone like him from a Premier League, I'd be like, yes. Him and Murillo, people like that, like you mentioned there, Joe, they're the kind of signings that would get me excited.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just that I don't think that we're shopping at that table anymore. This is the sad truth, and I don't want to end the podcast on an adjective. I really don't. But if you're Morgan Rogers, right, and Liverpool, Arsenal, United, City, any of those clubs, maybe a couple of clubs even across Europe, went sniffing around him, I don't see why he wouldn't go there first. I think a lot of clubs looked at Chelsea maybe 2 years ago and said, okay, they're buying a lot of good young talent here. Let's see how this plays out. Now, if Chelsea had signed Mudryk and Gusto and whoever else, and they'd gone on to be world stars, they might have gone, oh, do you know what? Chelsea know what they're bloody doing. I just fear now there's a lot of players out there that are at these teams that are thinking, well, look, Chelsea finished 6th, 7th this year. I don't think then clubs are looking at us like we're a big fish anymore. Until we do something radical or actually get ourselves back up there, I just don't see Chelsea being able to outbid Man City for Elliot Anderson, for example. If Man City want him, which sounds like they do, I think he would much rather go there, or maybe even Man United. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like we are slightly, at the moment, in the position we are. We might have to take the scraps a bit, which is a bit shit to say. And I don't want to end on a negative, but I think that is where we probably are, sadly. So we might have to kind of do the best we can with what we've got and hope that some of these younger players, like Esteval and maybe Palmer, can kind of galvanise the team alongside some experienced players, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think this is probably where getting the Champions League or not is vitally important, because someone like Morgan Rogers, you're right. If Chelsea finish outside the Champions League and obviously Villa get Champions League, then he's not going to Chelsea, is he? Let's face it. But if the script flips and Chelsea do get Champions League, then I think he would join Chelsea, move to London, play with Cole Palmer, etc. I think we become an appealing prospect. But again, we keep saying it. You have to be seeing progress, don't you, in the inverted commas project? Otherwise, players are just not going to have the faith. But you know what, Joe? If Chelsea can pull off this incredible running that I've somehow predicted, then everyone's going to want to join us, aren't they? It's going to be unbelievable.
And on that note, every little thing's probably going to be all right, mate.
I think you're right. We'll see you next time after that Man City game, which we both predicted won't be all right, but hopefully it will. See you next time, guys. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.